Postman Pat Goes Sledging. There was deep snow in Greendale. Peter Fogg was out early. He had the snowplow fitted to the big tractor, and he was clearing the snow from the roads. No one could get about until the roads are cleared, and the council snowplow would be busy on the main roads around Pencaster. Peter left a clear way behind him, and a little procession followed. Postman Pat in his van, Sam Morgan in his mobile shop, and Miss Hubbard on a bike. The Reverend Timms was digging the snow from the vicarage path and waved as they all went by. At the village post office, Mrs. Goggins was full of news. They do say there are 10-foot drifts up the top road, Pat. And here's an urgent parcel for George Lancaster. You'll never get up there today, you know, not with all this snow. Oh dear, said Pat. But I'd better take it just in case. I can get through. I usually manage somehow. Well, mind how you go, Pat. We don't want you getting buried in the snow like those poor sheep. Oh, I'll be all right. Cheerio. Pat was on his way, driving slowly along the slippery roads. At Greendale Farm, the twins were waiting for Pat with a pile of snowballs. A snowball whizzed through the air and hit Pat right on the nose. "Oh, you young monkeys," shouted Pat. "Two can play at that game." He made a big snowball and aimed at Tom's nose. "Oh!" Oh dear. Tom dodged. Pat was not a good shot, and just at that moment, Alf Thompson came out of the house. Smack! The snowball hit him right in the face. "Oh, sorry, Mr. Thompson," shouted Pat. "I didn't know you were there. I was aiming at the twins." "That's all right, Pat," said Alf. "It's only a bit of fun. Now then, Pat, you have to stop here a bit. The road's blocked, and Peter's stuck with his tractor in a big drift. We've come to try and dig it out. Can you give us a hand?" "Certainly," said Pat. He gave Mrs. Pottage her letters. Then he borrowed a spade and set out along the snowy road with Alf and Ted Glen. When they came to the tractor, Peter was already hard at work, digging out the high wall of snow. They all joined in. It took a long time to make a big enough gap. Then Peter started up the tractor and took a run at the snowdrift. Hurrah! He was through. Pat, Ted, and Alf walked back to Greendale Farm. The twins had been busy too. They'd built a snowman. Now Pat's van could get through, so off he went. He called at the vicarage with letters for the Reverend Timms. But Dr. Gilbertson came to the door. "Come in, Pat," she said. "The Reverend slipped on the ice and broken his leg." "I've just finished bandaging him up, and the ambulance will come for him as soon as the roads are clear." There was the Reverend sitting with his leg propped up on a cushion in splints and bandages. He cheered up when he saw Pat with his letters. "Wasn't this a silly thing to do, Pat?" he said. "And I was just going to take the parish magazine round too. Now what am I going to do?" "Don't worry," said Pat. "I can take it with my letters. No trouble at all. I'll see they get through. Now you enjoy your letters and rest that leg, and you'll soon be better. Cheerio." At Thompson Ground, Dorothy Thompson was out collecting the eggs. "I hope you haven't any letters for anybody up the top road," she said. "The snow's so bad that Peter had to turn back. The tractor just couldn't get up the hill. It was slipping all over the place." "Well, yes. I have a parcel for George, and it's marked urgent," said Pat. "What can I do? Perhaps I could walk it." "I've a better idea," said Alf. "We can go up on the old farm sledge. I have to take some food up for the sheep anyway." "Wow, it's a long time since I was on a sledge," said Pat doubtfully. Alf pulled the big sledge out of the barn. "Here we are," he said. "We'll be all right on this." "And you'd better take George some groceries," said Dorothy. "He'll be getting short with being snowed up. Jess can stay by the fire with me." They loaded up the sledge with bales of hay and a box of groceries, and off they went. It was hard going uphill. Alf pulled and Pat pushed. When they came to a downhill stretch, they jumped on and rode, skimming over the frozen snow. That was lovely. Alf's sheep were glad to see them. They gathered round in the snow, bleating. Alf untied the bales of hay and spread the hay on the snow. The sheep ran to it with bleats of joy. Then Alf and Pat pushed on to Intake Farm. George's house is half buried in the snow. Pat knocked at the door. "Hello," he called. "Anyone in?" There was no answer. "George'll be out seeing to sheep," said Alf. "The door's sure to be open." It was. So they left the parcel and the box of groceries on the kitchen table with a note on the back of an old envelope. Now the sledge was empty, and it was downhill most of the way back. "We'll have a fast ride home," said Alf. "Hold tight, Pat. Give us a push. Here we go." And off they went. They whizzed across the fields faster and faster. The snow was so deep that they went over the tops of the walls. They hit a bump, and over they went, tumbled and rolled in a deep drift of snow. They picked themselves up, found the sledge, climbed aboard, and off they went again. Pat hadn't enjoyed himself so much for years. Faster and faster down the hill they went. "Are we going to stop?" Pat shouted. "I don't know," shouted Alf. "Just hang on." Alf had forgotten how to stop a sledge. But they soon found out. Thompson Ground came into sight, and Alf steered for the yard. They shot through the open gate, scattering hens in all directions, and straight into the barn. They crashed into a pile of hay bales and fell off again, shouting and laughing. What a mess they were! They were covered in snow, bits of hay, and muck from the barn floor. They staggered into the house like drunken scarecrows. Jess was curled up on the rug in front of a warm fire. Dorothy had the kettle on. Alf and Pat cleaned themselves up, warmed themselves by the fire, and soon had a good hot mug of tea in their hands. "My goodness, that was an exciting ride," said Pat. "But I'd better be on my way now. I still have some letters to deliver. Thanks for the ride and the tea. Come on, Jess. You'll have to leave that fire now. Cheerio." The rest of Pat's round was in the valley, and the roads had been cleared and gritted by now. "No more digging or sledging today," said Pat to Jess. "It'll take more than snow to stop us." But Jess was curled up, fast asleep, and dreaming of that lovely warm fireside and Mrs. Thompson's woolly rug. Postman Pat's Thursday day. It was another hot day in Greendale, a very hot day. In the fields, the sheep looked for any patch of shade under a tree behind a wall. They gathered there, panting in their woolly coats. "It's a real scorcher today," said Pat to Jess as they drove along. "Whew, I'm thirsty already." The lakes were drying up. The stream was down to a trickle. At the village post office, Mrs. Goggins was outside looking out for Pat and trying to get cool. "Morning, Pat," she called. "Isn't it hot? And we're going to be without water today." "I know," said Pat. "The lake's really low, and they're going to turn the water off this morning. Whatever will we do?" "Well, I filled the kettle and 2 pans," said Mrs. Goggins. They went into the post office. Mrs. Goggins took a bottle of lemonade out of the fridge. "But they can't turn the lemonade off." "There you are, Pat. Have a drink before you go," she said. Lovely," said Pat. "Thank you. Just what I need." "My, that's good. That's much better. Well, I'd better be on my way. Thanks for the drink. Cheerio." Pat collected his letters and parcels. There was a parcel marked "Fragile" for Granny Dryden. "Now take good care of that," said Mrs. Goggins. "It looks like something from that catalogue of hers." "I will," said Pat. "I ordered a watch from her. It might be that. Cheerio." Pat was on his way. He began his round with the village letters. Along winding streets, through narrow passageways, in and out of cottage gardens he went, and everyone was pleased to see him. He met Granny Dryden out shopping and told her about the parcel. "It's in the van," he said. "I'll pop in with it later." Then he told her about the water being cut off. "Well, it's a pity the old pump isn't working," she said. "There were plenty of dry summers in my young days, and you know, that pump never dried up, not once." "I wonder," said Pat. "I wonder if Ted Glen could mend it. I must ask him. He can fix just about anything." Pat tried the rusty handle of the pump as he passed it, but it wouldn't move. He finished the village letters, then set out for the farms in his van. At Greendale Farm, the water was already off. Peter Fogg was winding buckets of water up from the old well to get water for the cows. Kate and Tom were helping to carry the water to the trough. "Hello," said Pat. You still have the water in the well, then? Let's have a look. He bent over to peer into the mossy depths. He could hear water splashing and dripping, but it was too dark and deep to see. He bent further, then, oops! His hat slipped off and dropped into the well. "Oh dear," said Pat. "I'll never see that again." "I wonder if I can fish it out with the hook," said Peter. "Let's try." He lowered the hook without the bucket on it and swung it about at the bottom. When he wound it up again, Pat's hat was on it, dripping wet and trailing strands of waterweed. "It'll be nice and cool anyway," said Peter. "Thanks," said Pat. "Now I mustn't drop your letters down the well." "No," said Peter. "Thanks, Pat. And would you mind dropping off a drum of water for George Lancaster? He hasn't got a well or a spring, so he must be desperate for water by now." "Certainly," said Pat. "We'll be going past this road end. Cheerio." High in the hills at Intake Farm, George Lancaster had no water at all. He was very glad to see the big plastic drum of water in the back of Pat's van. "Special delivery," said Pat. "A parcel of water. There's no address on it, but it looks pretty dry here, so I think it must be for you." "Thanks, Pat," said George. "You've saved my life. We've dried out completely up here." Pat remembered to call at Ted Glenn's workshop to ask if Ted could mend the old village pump. "Well, I don't know," said Ted. "That pump hasn't been used since I was a boy. The works may be all rusted away, but Granny Dryden's lived all her life in Greendale, and she knows a thing or two, so she could be right about that pump. Besides, my water's been off all morning, and I'm thirsty, so it's worth a try. I'll just get my tools. Leave it to me." At Thompson Grand, Dorothy Thompson was enjoying a cup of tea when Pat called with a letter. "Hello," said Pat. "Isn't your water off? Everyone else's is." "No, we have a spring," said Mrs. Thompson. "It comes out of the hillside just above the house. It's never been known to dry up, not since Grandad was a boy anyway. And that was a very long time ago." "You are lucky," said Pat, and he told her about the village pump. "I wonder how Ted's getting on." Down in the village, Ted was very busy. He was hard at work on that old pump, and a crowd had gathered to watch and cheer him on. Mrs. Goggins brought him a pot of tea to keep him going. Miss Hubbard brought him a frying pan that needed mending. The Reverend Timms promised to say a prayer for rain at evensong. Arthur Thompson said there was nothing like a really good spring. But Ted just kept on working. He carefully took everything to pieces. He put oil and grease on the rusty bearings and cleaned all the rust away. He hammered a bent rod until it was ruler straight. He fitted a new washer. He cleaned 50 years of rubbish out of the pipes, old twigs and leaves, newspapers, dirty rags, a dead mouse. At last, he put the pump together again. He tightened everything up and screwed the top on. Now then, let's see, he said. He worked the handle up and down. Nothing happened. It's gone dry, someone said. He tried again. There was a gurgle deep in the pipes. Again, a spurt of rusty water gushed out, wetting everyone. Hurrah! They all cheered. Ted went on pumping. The water ran rusty golden for a time. Then it came clean and clear. Pat arrived in time to see it. I knew you'd do it, he said. I just knew you would. Granny Jordan will be pleased. I'll take her some water to celebrate. Everyone queued up to fill their cans and buckets and thank Ted. Jess came for drink and had an unexpected bath. When Pat called on Granny Jordan, he told her all about how Ted had mended the pump and gave her a can of water with a parcel. She was delighted. I'll have to come and see for myself, she said. She opened the parcel. It was the new digital watch that Pat had ordered from a catalogue. That's good, said Pat. I'll always be on time now. I'll bring the money tomorrow. Cheerio. Look after yourself. Pat had kept a can of water for himself. Jess kept a sharp eye on it all the way home. He didn't want another wetting, no matter how hot it was.